Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, and Halloween are holidays that believers should not be celebrating. All of these holidays are founded on pagan roots, not the Bible. Christmas is a pagan fertility ritual. It began in Rome as the Feast of Saturnalia, honoring the Roman god Saturn, then moving on to the Feast of Sol Invictus, also called the birthday of the unconquerable sun, honoring the Roman sun god. Yahushua was not born on December 25th. The Bible does not give an exact date for his birth, but if we follow the Jewish calendars in accordance to Scripture, we can see that he was born on the fall, around the Feast of Sukkot, or Tabernacles. As a matter of fact, many pagan gods, including the Roman gods and ancient Egyptian gods, were born on December 25th, gods like Mithras. The wicked king Nimrod was also born on December 25th. Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2-4 states, "Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen, with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold, they fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not." One can very easily liken these verses to the custom of setting up a Christmas tree. The Christmas tree, or Yule log, represented a phallic symbol. The Christmas tree was decorated in order to bring it some sort of honor, in hopes that the pagan god of fertility, Freyr, among other fertility gods, would hasten childbirth and give barren wombs pregnancy. Christmas is heavily rooted in Norse pagan mythology. That Christmas is of pagan origin is hardly a matter of debate. It is a matter of fact that the same date was celebrated by the pagan Romans as the birthday of the sun god and had originated in the Babylonian mystery religion. Common themes and items used during Christmas are of pagan origins as well, such as mistletoe, holly berries, and wreaths. Mistletoe is a parasitic plant which the Druids used as charms. Holly berries were believed to be sacred for the sun god. Wreaths were used by pagan Druids as well. The boar and goose were animals commonly offered by pagans to the sun god. The Norse and Anglo-Saxon tribes would burn a Yule log to honor Thor. The Scandinavians even adopted the word Yule, which meant wheel or sun, as their word for Christmas. The Christmas tree may be traced back to the worship of oak trees by the Anglo and Germanic tribes, but goes back even further to the use of trees in the worship of Tammuz by the Babylonians, which I will cover when I speak about Easter. Santa has a pagan origin as well. Ever notice how Santa Claus looks just like Odin the Allfather, the highest god of Norse paganism? When the Norse burned the Yule log, they believed that the goddess Hertha would appear in the fireplace and bring good luck upon the home. Christians replaced the goddess Hertha with Saint Nicholas, an anti-Semitic 4th century quote-unquote saint, whose feast day was near Christmas time. The Dutch called Saint Nicholas Sinterklaas, which was picked up in America as Santa Claus. Santa Claus retains godlike qualities. He is apparently omniscient since he knows who is naughty and nice. He is omnipresent since he visits all the children of the world in one night, and perhaps even omnipotent, and at the very least has magical powers. Instead of children worrying about living holy lives pleasing to Yahushua, they instead worry about being behaved so they can receive worldly presents from Santa, which often leads many children to idolatry as well. Even if one wanted to celebrate Christmas for Yahushua alone, the world completely overshadows it with the commercial aspects of Santa and holiday sales. It is interesting that Santa is an anagram of Satan. Old Nick is a nickname used both for Satan and Santa Claus. For example, look at the movie that came out in the year 2000, called Little Nicky, in which Adam Sandler played the son of Satan. In fact, because of its well-known pagan origins, Christmas was actually illegal in early colonial America and only gradually became a legal holiday in the United States. It was not until 1856 that Christmas was made a legal holiday in Massachusetts, the last of the U.S. states to accept Christmas as a legal holiday. Although many Christians see Christmas as a Christian holiday, Christmas is actually a very worldly holiday. Non-Jews do not join with Jews to celebrate Jewish holidays, and non-Muslims do not join with Muslims to celebrate Muslim holidays. So why do non-Christians join with Christians to celebrate Christmas? Why do pornographic magazines feature special Christmas editions? Why do topless bars and gay bars, as well as strip joints, host Christmas parties? Why do non-believers love Christmas? Because Christmas is clearly a worldly holiday. On this day, Christians and non-believers join in the celebration of the high carnival of the year, while Nazarene Jews and others abstaining from this pagan holiday are called ignorant and narrow-minded for objecting to Christmas observance. On this day, the whole world pretends to love Yahushua, even though Yahushua said the whole world hates him. The only holiday a believer should celebrate in December is Hanukkah. Moving on, Valentine's Day comes from the Roman Lupercalia festival, which is also a pagan health and fertility ritual. While some believe that Valentine's Day is celebrated in the middle of February to commemorate the anniversary of Valentine's death and burial, which probably occurred around AD 270, in reality, the Catholic Church decided to place St. Valentine's feast day in the middle of February in an effort to Christianize the pagan celebration of Lupercalia. Celebrated at the Ides of February or February 15th, Lupercalia was a fertility festival dedicated to Faunus, the Roman god of agriculture, as well as to the Roman founders Romulus and Remus. To begin the festival, members of the Luperci, an order of Roman priests, would gather at a sacred cave where the infants Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, were believed to have been cared for by a she-wolf, or lupa. The priests would sacrifice a goat for fertility and a dog for purification. They would then strip the goat's hides into strips, dip them into sacrificial blood, and take to the streets, gently slapping both women and crop fields with the goat hide. Far from being fearful, Roman women welcomed the touch of the hides because it was believed to make them more fertile in the coming year, as well as bring them their perfect husband, which is why it was also a festival of love. Later in the day, all the young women in the city would place their names in a big urn. The city's bachelors would each choose a name and become paired for the year with this chosen woman. These matches often ended in marriage. Lupercalia survived the initial rise of Christianity but was then outlawed, as it was deemed unchristian at the end of the 5th century when Pope Gelasius declared February 14th St. Valentine's Day instead of Lupercalia. Just like Christmas, it was originally a purely pagan festival. Then it was eventually outlawed and the name was changed, but it still retained many of its pagan traits and practices, hidden under the guise of Christianity. Easter has its own pagan origins as well. Easter is another name for Ishtar, the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of war, sex, love, and fertility. Easter was celebrated as the day of the resurrection for the Babylonian god Tammuz, the son of Ishtar. Rabbits, another symbol for Easter, are a potent symbol of fertility due to their prodigious output of young. Eggs, likewise, have always been considered representative of new life, fertility, and reincarnation. Painted eggs, thought to imitate the bright sunlight and gaily colored flowers of spring, have been used in rituals since the days of the ancient Egyptians and Babylonians. Easter was also celebrated for the death and resurrection of many other pagan gods. It was simply the latest manifestation of earlier resurrection myths, like those of Osiris, Orpheus, Tammuz, and Dionysus, who were likewise said to have been born of virgins and resurrected 3 days after their deaths. Ishtar is Semiramis, which I explained in my previous 2-part video about the origin of false religions. Semiramis claimed that she was immaculately conceived. She taught that she was a moon goddess that went through a 28-day cycle when ovulated and full. She further claimed that she came down from the moon in a giant moon egg that fell into the Euphrates River. This was to have happened at the time of the first full moon after the spring equinox. Semiramis became known as Ishtar, which is pronounced Easter, and her moon egg became known as Ishtar's egg, which today would be called an Easter egg. Ishtar soon became pregnant and claimed that it was the rays of the sun god Baal that caused her to conceive. The son that she brought forth was named Tammuz. Tammuz was noted to be especially fond of rabbits, and they became sacred in the ancient religion because Tammuz was believed to be the child of the sun god Baal. Tammuz, like his father, became a hunter. The day came when Tammuz was killed by a wild pig while on a hunt. Queen Ishtar told the people that Tammuz was now ascended to his father, and that the two of them would be with the worshippers in the sacred candle or lamp flame as Father, Son, and Spirit. Ishtar, who was now worshipped as the Mother of God and Queen of Heaven, continued to build her mystery religion. The queen told the worshippers that when Tammuz was killed by the wild pig, some of his blood fell on the stump of an evergreen tree, and the stump grew into a full new tree overnight. This made the evergreen tree sacred by the blood of Tammuz, which goes back to the origins of the Christmas tree. She also proclaimed a 40-day period of time of sorrow each year, prior to the anniversary of the death of Tammuz, which is where the 40 days of Lent come from. During this time, no meat was to be eaten. Worshippers were to meditate upon the sacred mysteries of Baal and Tammuz, and to make the sign of a T in front of their hearts as they worshipped. They also ate sacred cakes with a marking of a T or cross on the top, which is the origin of the hot cross buns. Every year, on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox, a celebration was made. It was Ishtar Sunday and was celebrated with rabbits and eggs. Ishtar also proclaimed that because Tammuz was killed by a pig, that a pig must be eaten on that Sunday, which is where the tradition of eating an Easter ham comes from. By now you should have made the connection that paganism has infiltrated the contemporary Christian churches, and further study indicates that this paganism came in by way of the Roman Catholic system. The truth is that Easter has nothing whatsoever to do with Messiah Yahushua, or his resurrection. We also know that Easter can be as much as 3 weeks away from Passover, because the pagan holiday is always set as the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. Some have wondered why the word Easter is in the Bible. It is because Acts chapter 12 tells us that it was the evil King Herod who was planning to celebrate Easter, not the Jews. The true Passover and pagan Easter sometimes coincide, but in many years they are a great distance apart. We know that the Bible tells us in John 4:24 that God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The truth is that the 40 days of Lent, eggs, rabbits, hot cross buns, and the Easter ham have everything to do with the ancient pagan religion of Mystery Babylon. These are all Antichrist activities. These customs of Easter honor Baal, who is in reality Nimrod but also Satan, and is still worshipped as the rising sun, and his house is called the house of the rising sun. This also coincides with all the sun imagery and worship and idolatry of the Catholic Church system. How many churches have sunrise services on Ishtar's day and face the rising sun of the east? How many will use the colored eggs and rabbit stories as they did in ancient Babylon? We should be shunning and rebuking Easter and celebrating Passover instead. Last but not least, Halloween is a very high occult and satanic holiday, also called Samhain. It is without a doubt the worst of these pagan holidays. It is the most wicked, evil, and satanic day of the year. In ancient Britain and Ireland, the Celtic festival of Samhain was observed on October 31st at the end of summer. The souls of the dead were supposed to revisit their homes on this day, and the autumn festival acquired sinister significance, with ghosts, witches, goblins, black cats, fairies, and demons of all kinds said to be roaming about. It is a day where the barrier between the spiritual and physical realms was said to be thinned out, allowing the demonic to manifest easily, no doubt with the help of witches, warlocks, occultists, and Satanists worldwide, being more active on that day than any other day of the year. It was a time to placate the supernatural powers controlling the processes of nature. In addition, Halloween was thought to be the most favorable time for divinations concerning marriage, luck, health, and death. It was the only day on which the help of the devil was invoked for such purposes. All of this is obviously very sinful and condemned all throughout Scripture. Another wicked theme of Halloween is the carving of the jack-o'-lantern. Jack-o'-lanterns started out as a carved image of spirit beings. Originally, a candle was put into a turnip or potato which had an ugly face carved into it. One purpose of the jack-o'-lantern was to frighten the spirits who were thought to invade the earth on Halloween night into going back into the world of the dead. Jack-o'-lanterns were also used when witches put candles inside of skulls to light their coven meetings. These meetings often took place in dark areas such as caves, underground holes, or other areas that were separated from the villages and towns where the majorities lived. Halloween is a very important day for occultists, witches, and Satanists worldwide, and often involving child sacrifice to different gods. Why do you think so many police reports indicate a drastic increase of missing children on or around Halloween? They are kidnapped and tortured before being used for sacrifices. Halloween is a day where demons worldwide are very active. Another reason the holiday often goes hand in hand with death and all other different forms of grim and demonic symbolism. Many believers, including myself, can agree that spiritual warfare gets extremely heavy during this time of year, more so than any other month. The idea of trick-or-treating is further related to the ghosts of the dead in pagan and even Catholic history. For example, among the ancient Druids, the ghosts that were thought to throng about the houses of the living were greeted with a banquet-laden table. If a spirit came to your home and did not receive a feast or food of some kind, they would cause all sorts of trouble. They would curse and destroy your crops, home, family, land, and possessions. This is where trick-or-treating originated from. At the end of the feast, masked and costumed villagers representing the souls of the dead paraded to the outskirts of town leading the ghosts away, or even attempting to scare them to prevent them from returning the next year. We should never be celebrating these unholy holidays. They are an abomination to God. Now you know better and you no longer have an excuse. The word holiday literally means holy day, or a day that is set apart, but you must discern who the day is set apart to. All these days are set apart to Satan, not to God. If you want to celebrate holidays ordained by God and not Satan in one of his pagan god disguises, celebrate the Jewish feast days. Yahweh commands us to honor them and keep them holy. These are the only true holidays that have not only been ordained by Yahweh, but that Yahushua himself celebrated. Shouldn't we be following his footsteps in all ways? That includes keeping his Shabbat and feast days holy as he kept them holy. We must honor them in earth, and we will also honor them as we are in heaven. Shalom and Yah bless.
History of Valentine's Day. Should Christians celebrate Valentine's Day? Is February 14 a Christian holiday? May be a surprise to some, but there are more pagan connections to Valentine's Day than that of Christian ones. Tradition. Date of February 14. Parentalia. Juno Lupu, the she-wolf. Peace, love, and household gods were celebrated on February 13th. The second day of Parentalia, February 14, was dedicated to Juno Lupo, the she-wolf, who suckled Romulus and Remus. Feast of Lupercalia. Young men and priests called Luperci will go to a grotto dedicated to Lupercal, the wolf god. They then would dress themselves in bloody skins of sacrificial goats. Afterwards, in an act of purification, run a course through the city of Rome and Juno Lupo's cave around the Palatine Hill, hitting women with strips of goat skin as they went to promote fertility. February 15 was the celebration of the second day of Lupercal, honoring Faunus, the god of fertility, and the third day of Pantonelia, dedicated to Juno, Februata. The Romans played out a riot of romantic roulette. The Luperci drew the names of young women from a box, thus paired by the gods. The couples remained paired until the following Lupercalia. Cupid, the Roman god of love, one of the most famous of all Valentine's symbols. As the son of Venus, he is often depicted as a mischief-winged child whose arrows pierce the hearts of the victims, causing them to fall in love. Cupid is derived from the Latin word cupado, which means desire. Brace yourself, because what I'm about to tell you gets really disturbing. Nimrod was also called Cupid as a child. It is said that when Nimrod's mother saw him, she lusted after him, and she desired him. So evil was Nimrod's mother that it is said that she married her own son. Inscribed on the monuments of ancient Egypt are the inscriptions, Nimrod, the husband of his mother. As Nimrod grew up, he became the child hero of many women who desired him. He was their Cupid. In the book of Daniel, he is called the desire of women, Daniel 11:37. He provoked so many women to jealousy that an idol of him was often called the image of jealousy. After Nimrod's death, it was believed that he had ascended to the sun and was now to be called Baal, the sun god. Do you think these pictures provoke desire in pedophilers? Cupid is just an old-fashioned case of child pornography. Saint Valentine, the Christian priest. According to one story, Roman Emperor Claudius II imposed a ban on marriages because too many young men were dodging the draft by getting married. Only single men had to enter the army. A Christian priest named Valentinus was caught performing secret marriages and sentenced to death. While awaiting execution, young lovers visited him with notes about how much better love is than war. The execution was said to have occurred in 269 CE on February 14th. Don't let this fool you. It's just another excuse to celebrate the ancient Roman pagan holiday on February 14th, disguised as holy with a Christian priest's propaganda. Now, there's another story about a different Christian priest named Valentinus. And from his story, we get the reason why we pass out Valentine cards. You already know. The Romans played out a rite of romantic roulette. The Luperci drew the names of young women from a box. This is how the story goes. This Valentinus was a priest jailed for helping Christians. During his stay, he fell in love with the jailer's daughter and sent her note signed, "From your Valentine." Paganism and Christian together thanks to the Catholic Church. But if you know your history, the religious leaders won't fool you. In 469, Emperor Gelasius declared February 14th a holy day in honor of Valentinus instead of the pagan god Lupercus. This allowed Christianity to take over some of the celebrations of love and fertility, which had previously occurred in the context of paganism. Pagan celebrations were reworked to fit the martyr theme. The Church's version replaced a lottery of lovers with a lottery of saints. Instead of drawing names of young maidens from a box, Christians pulled out saints. Valentine's Day is no longer part of the official calendar of any Christian church. It was dropped by the Catholic Church in 1969. A return to a more pagan-like celebration of February 14 is not surprising, and neither is the overall commercialization of the day. The Catholic Church helped to make Valentine's Day a cultural holiday, and now it's all about the dollar bills. Valentine's Day, a commercial holiday. Hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on chocolates, candy, flowers, dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry, and other gifts used to celebrate February 14th. What does the scriptures have to say? Isn't it time we examine why we encourage our children to celebrate St. Valentine's Day? Ancient tradition still exists in observance of Valentine's Day. It is clear that Valentine's Day is associated with the worshiping of other gods. There is no scripture encouraging the celebrating of Valentine's Day or any holiday for that matter. Deuteronomy 12:29, When the Lord thy God shall cut off the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedest them and dwellest in their land. Take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by following them, after that they be destroyed from before thee, and inquire thou not after their gods, saying, How did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God, for every abomination to the Lord which he hateth have they done unto their gods, for even their sons and their daughters have they burnt in the fire to their gods.